Hi everyone, you're very welcome to our live interview with artists, designers, and illustrators all over the world. And today we have a very wonderful guest, Jan Boden-Spears. She's a multiple talented creative entrepreneur based in UK with over 30 years of experience as a designer, agent, and curator. And I think that we are really lucky today to talk with Jan, as she has so much experience, not only in art but also in representing your art, as she is the owner of such a beautiful agency. And today we'll explore her artistic journey, her business, and also her exciting new Golden Threads Weekly Art Challenge. We will talk about how to break into publishing. I hope we got some tips from Art Agent and advice for artists seeking for representation. And you're very welcome to drop your questions in the comments. And if you don't want to miss all the highlights from these interviewers, all the tips for illustrators and artists who want to be represented in art illustrator agency, you are very welcome to subscribe to the newsletter. You can find the link in my bio. And we are starting soon. I just sent the invite to John. I think that, yeah. Questions you may have. Yeah, I sent the invitation. So, one more time. Sometimes yeah, it need a couple of minutes. Oh, I see it. Accept. 1 second, please. I'm trying to accept it. I don't know why it's not working. John, and do you use your phone or the laptop? Because I know that there might be some troubles with their laptop or computer if you open your Instagram there, that it wouldn't work. So please, if you can, join us from your phone. Yeah, it's working.
Richard, it's tweeting at the screen.
Oh, I can hear you and I see your office or something like that.
Hello, everyone. So I'm not using my own mobile now because it wasn't working on my mobile.
And you took another phone.
Yeah, I'm on Richard, my partner's. I'm on his mobile. So, but we're here. So thank you, Richard.
Yeah, I'm happy you did this, and what a great idea to try another phone. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I'm really very glad to see you, and I'm excited to talk with you because it's the first time when our guest is art agent, and this is amazing because most of our viewers are creatives, illustrators, designers, and people who love to draw, and of course many of them are very curious about how to be represented by the art agency. So we'll talk about all this today. But let's start from the beginning. You are an artist also. Can you share with us how your life connected with art, when and how everything began?
Oh, thank you, Polina. It's a pleasure to meet you for the first time as well. And I can see you're surrounded by your beautiful, colourful artwork, which it's just such a pleasure for me to see your work as well. Really, really inspiring. And how did I start as an artist? Well, I've always been in love with colour. I grew up being in love with colour and conversations, and I studied textiles from the age of 16. And from there, I went on to do a degree in printed textiles. And my first job was as a textile designer working out in Vienna. So I learned a lot on the job as a textile designer in-house. And I was lucky to have my artwork published while I was still an art student as well. So I experienced really early on the joy of having your work published and having my own ideas, my individual ideas recognised at an early stage has really inspired me to build a career which is really based on listening to my individual ideas and encouraging other artists to do the same.
Yeah, and you were textile or is a textile designer, and how you decided to switch from creating designs, and you're very successful in this. As I know, as I read on your website, you're licensing hundreds of designs.
Yes, I've licensed hundreds of my own designs, and I was a full-time surface pattern designer and for over 15 years, and I created artwork for licensing clients and also used to do a lot of screen printing and embroidery. I made big wall hangings and cushions and all sorts of products for shops all over the country, and I also exhibited my work. And I also exhibited other artists' work in my own house as part of the Brighton Festival once a year, whilst I was a full-time artist. And that really showed me that I'm really interested in people's responses to artwork, and I'm really interested in the deeper creative process and how it's different for everybody, and how the responses that we get to our artwork are highly personal as well. So I'm really interested in that dialogue that we have both with our own work and the people who look at our artwork. So for me to really have that understanding that that was something that I was really interested in was the beginning of then setting up my own art agency. And now I'm a full-time agent, and I run Shahan Limited, which is an illustration agency. But I think the key catalyst for me doing that, Polina, in answer to your question, is that when I had my children, who are now 20 and 17, when I first had my son, Lucas, 20 years ago, I was naturally worried about, well, my artwork's really time consuming. Everything I do is hand painted, paper collage, really carefully cut out and embroidered. And how am I going to be able to create the number of designs that I'm used to doing for my customers when I've got a young baby? And I think I was really worried that I would lose momentum. I've always been such a hard worker, and I didn't want to lose connection and lose touch with my customers. So I thought, well, I love other artists' work. I love talking to other artists. I love selling other artists' work. So why don't I show the artist's work that I know and I admire, that I think might work for my clients? Why don't I show my clients their artwork? Because that will be something that will keep me engaged, it will keep me connected. And everything really grew from there, and it's been an amazing journey. That was 20 years ago, December 2004, so 20 years.
That's amazing. How do you think, what helped you that time to find clients so easily? Because for many artists, they're so introverted and it's not easy to connect, to talk, to write to clients. And you had so many clients that you even started to think about finding other illustrators for these clients.
Well, I don't know that I had lots and lots and lots of clients at that point. I had I had 10 or so very good clients that I'd already been working with for over 10 years. So I had very established relationships with a small number of clients. And I chose the artwork that I showed them very carefully. So I would only choose artwork by artists whose work I loved, and that's still the same today. But I also really was careful about showing the right kind of artwork to the right clients that I did have. But I didn't have scores and scores of clients myself as an artist, especially because I was working in different ways. I was also selling my handmade artwork to shops all over the country. So I was selling to maybe 100 shops. So I had clients in that part of my business. And then I also had my licensing clients. And then I also had my gallery clients. So everything added up together to be a lot of clients. But when I started to be an agent, I was really focusing on small number of clients that I already had a fantastic relationship with. And I started small, and it grew very slowly over time. So I think nothing happens really, really quickly. And I think we all know as artists how long it takes to do good work, and how carefully we have to think. And yeah, everything takes time. And I feel like I've worked 5 lifetimes in my one lifetime. So yeah, which has also helped me, because I've always consistently worked hard.
And what were your first steps in building your career as art agent?
My tips?
Yeah, your first steps.
Well, my
What
first step.
you, yeah.
So do you mean when I set up my own agency?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a good question. So I think my first step was to really think about what my vision was and what I wanted to really achieve. And I'd worked as an art licensing agent before I set up Shahan Limited 7 years ago. I'd also worked as an art licensing agent with hundreds of artists. I'd also worked with museums that had thousands and thousands of pieces of work in their archives. And I'd also worked with artists who had other agents. And I'd done that for a number of years. And before I set up Shahan Limited, and when I set up Shahan Limited, really I had to say to myself, okay, what's your vision? What do you want? What's really important to you? And for me, it was really important to not be working with hundreds and hundreds of artists as an agent, but to really work with a small number of artists in a personal way. So that was a very conscious decision. And I also really had a vision that I wanted to work in publishing and in art licensing, which I hadn't worked in publishing very much before that. And I had a very specific dream to work more in publishing, because I love books and everyone loves books. And I also made the decision to work with artists that I personally would really know that I could really respond to and engage with, because I'd had a different experience of working with so many hundreds of artists that I didn't have that connection and that interest to all of those artists' work in that situation. And that was something that I really wanted. And I love to work now with more artists than I represent through my challenges and through connecting on social media, because I'm really interested in more than the small number of artists that I can work with as an agent. But representing hundreds and hundreds of artists is a completely different relationship, and you can't have a strong personal relationship with that number of artists if you're representing artists. Because I want to be creatively involved and engaged with my artists. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. Do you personally search and approve which artist you invite to your agency?
Yes. So everybody personally kind of selected either by me approaching them or them approaching me. So I see every single submission, and I think it's really important that my vision 7 years on is still very present in where we are now. Obviously, we've grown over that time, but I think the personal touch is really important to maintain whatever we're doing.
And what are your key things that you're looking for when you're selecting the artist, who you want to represent, what this artist should have in their portfolio, or maybe there's something more, not only portfolio, maybe important. How do you decide whom to select?
It's such a good question, and I think the answer to this question will be different if you ask another agent, because we're all very individual. So my personal answer to that question is that I love to see a sparkling sense of colour. Colour is really important to me. And I'm looking for a combination of something of artwork which you can apply in publishing. So you can apply that to books as well as to surface pattern and products. So a lot of artwork sits very comfortably in one or the other. And sometimes there's potential to tease the other thing out of whichever area of those two things an artist isn't working in, if the artist is interested in doing that. Or sometimes it sits so definitely in one or the other that might be a reason, whilst I might love the artwork, if it doesn't have that combination, then for me, then it's not work it's work I would admire and love to see, but not to actually represent. So I'm looking for something with that sense of narrative, I think, as well as the colour.
Can you please give us some examples? So, for example, what kind of work would fit to your agency? What are these features that this work should include?
Yes, of course. So let me see. This, for example, is a beautiful pop-up book. This is by Jenny Zemanek. This is Swan Lake. And you can see, if I go into the details here, you can see that there's a really wonderful sense of colour. You can see that. You can see the line work, and the drawing is lovely. You can see that there's a decorative touch to it, but you can also see that there's an illustrative touch to that as well. So that, for example, is a really lovely example of something that works well in a book. But you could also imagine that probably, as a pattern or as the front of a notebook. So again, if we look at the trees, they're not highly representational in a very, highly realistic traditional sense. They've been done in a more decorative stroke illustrative way. So yeah, I hope that explains a little bit.
Yeah. What advice would you give to artists and illustrators who would love to be represented by your agency? What they should put into their portfolio? And okay, let's start from here.
Start from here. So I think for me, the number one really important thing in your portfolio is that it's representative of you. So for me, I want to see the individual's artwork, and I want to see the individual's vision and colour and their interests. That's something that's ultimately much, much more important to me than whether or not you're showing that you can do birds, or that you're showing that you can do flowers, or that you're showing that you can do Christmas. That's of lesser importance to me. I want to see the love for what you're doing, and that you're honing your individual sensibilities around the work that you're creating, so that I can see it's often talked about as a signature style, for example, but so that I can really have a sense of your creative mind, of your creative interests, and what your focus is. So focus is a really good word, I think. Show what it is in your portfolio that you want to focus on. Show me what you want to focus on. You might be an artist that can work in 15 different styles, but show me the one that's the most important to you. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to connect to. That's the number one thing.
Thank you. And if we talk about technical part, kind of in what format, it's better to send you a PDF, a link to Instagram, link to website. What is the best way for you as an art agent? What is more convenient for you? What format do you prefer to receive when you're thinking about considering new illustrator?
Yeah. Thank you for asking, Paulina. So I really love to see a selection of 10 10 JPEGs sent via email. And I also really love to have a link to your website and a link to your Instagram. And the reason that I really love seeing 10 pieces of work is that I'm sure you've got more than 10 pieces of work, but you have to choose 10. So that shows me which 10 you're currently putting front and center as your focus. So that gives me an immediate sense of where you're at. And that's really important to me, because it's not just about showing our millions of kind of different things that you can do. Again, it's back to who is this person, who is this artist, and what are they interested in focusing on. And that could be potentially very different from other artwork on your website. But if it is, I'll notice that, and that's a question that I would ask. So this is really interesting. Why are those two things so different? And I think that's something that's worth artists really thinking about, is if you are about to send a submission to a client or to an agent, definitely worth asking the question, have I looked recently at my website? Have I looked recently at the artworks that are really the most dominant on my website? And are they aligned with the artwork that I'm actually currently wanting to focus on and I'm going to send as part of my submission? Are those two things aligned? And if not, ask yourself why not, and explore that a little bit more. Because a website is a really, really useful place for an agent to look at, again, because the way it's curated can really say a lot about you as an artist.
So do you mean that it's okay to put 10 images to inserting into the email body, right? Or...
Yes, that's how I'd love. I would ask to see either, or as a PDF. You can attach it as a PDF, or within. Yeah, a PDF is probably the best thing, but no more than 10 pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for answering. I just hear these questions very often from artists who would love to be represented, but they really can be very frustrated with all these little details and start to procrastinate and not sending their portfolios just because they're not sure what is the right way. I think you know how self-conscious artists sometimes can be.
Yes, of course.
And how do you think, when it's the best time for an artist and illustrator to pitch their portfolio to art agencies? Is there any way to test, to check if the artist is ready or not to apply?
So that is a really, really good question. And there's a resource that I have developed for artists which might be really useful for your listeners. It's called Find Your Agent. So I can give you the link, share the link for that, but it goes into 10 questions to ask yourself when you're looking for an agent, because the more you can get to know yourself and what you need and how you like to work, the more likely you're going to find an agent that's right for you. So, for example, are you an artist who is working mainly with your archive? So therefore you're not going to be creating lots and lots of new work for an agent, and that might be really important for an agent. For example, some agents won't want you to share your artwork on social media, and other agents will be happy for you to do that. How do you feel about that, for example, as a question? I think it's always a good time for you to pitch your artwork, and there's never a right time, there's never a perfect time, but I think it's good for you to take a little bit of time to get to know yourself as to what it is you actually want. So, for example, some agents will want you to create a certain number of pieces every week or every month, and they might have a contract that is asking you to commit to that number of new pieces of work. I know that some agencies do that, and how do you feel about that? It's important to ask yourself. I don't do that myself, because I want to leave it more open for for the creative process. But there are all sorts of layers within how you might work as an artist. So shall I share the link for that? It's a useful resource. It's yourcreativegold.com/find your agent. There's lots of questions in there to support people.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing. It would be also wonderful if you could find a minute after we finish the live to put it in the comments, because people who are watching, only if you have time.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I would do it if I was on my phone. I'd do it now.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned the social media. How important is it for an artist to be represented on social media? What do you think?
I think it's really important. Yes, definitely. I'm sorry. I'm just touching this phone because it's not mine, and I'm just going to ask Richard to come and help me too. I was trying to add a comment, Paulina, and now the keyboard's up, and I can't see.
There was a comment with the link yourcreativegold.com/find-your-agent.
Oh, right? Brilliant.
Yeah,
that's it. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to do it and it did. Yeah. Yeah. But I think try not to procrastinate and try to just go for it whenever it is you're interested in approaching someone.
Maybe you can also mention some of the red flags artists should watch out when they're choosing the art agent.
So I think for me, the red flags are working with an agent that's clearly that's not going to be right for you and for what you need. So those are the red flags to begin with. So really try and look at what that agent is actually doing. Don't just think, oh, it's going to just be a magic wand for me to have an agent, any agent. That isn't going to be the answer. And you'd be better off representing yourself than working with the wrong agent. And I think that's probably the most important thing. And like I've said, some agents would want you to create a certain number of pieces per month, and that might be okay for you. It wouldn't work for most of my artists, but it might be okay for you. So I think in general, it's really hard to generalize a red flag. But for example, there are some agencies that have 500 artists. So if they've got 500 artists, they would need to have lots and lots and lots of agents for you to get personal attention. But you might not want personal attention. You might be a fine artist. You might be creating so many paintings for your galleries, for your exhibitions, that it's a bonus if you have an agent who can license your artwork for wall art, posters, or for greeting cards, etc. But you might not really be open to having a one-to-one with an agent. So in that situation, that agency with 500 artists would maybe be fine for you. But for example, the way that I work is I have one-to-ones with my artists regularly. I talk to them about their ideas, I suggest ways that they can develop. I'll ask them what their vision is, and we'll talk about, okay, well, what can you specifically create in order for us to pitch this interest to try and develop that specific part of your portfolio. And that's a different conversation that I have with each of my artists. And so we're never working all in exactly the same way, unless we're working towards a project that I've set them, in a specific theme that everybody's working on as a group. So
thank you. And it's also very interesting to know what are some of the red flags for you as an art agent when you're selecting the artist.
So for me, I'm not looking for an artist who's interested in working in lots and lots of different styles, for example. So if an artist was saying, I love to work in lots of different styles and I really want to continue working in lots of different styles, then for me, that would be a red flag. It's partly because I'm really interested in in us as creative individuals, really asking ourselves the question, well, in which part of our work are we really the most interested in, and how can I develop that specifically? It's partly that, and it's also partly that if I'm talking to a client, if I haven't got a point of focus that you're really focusing on, difficult for me to then share your story, share what's special about your work, because there are so many different styles, there are so many different things that are special about your work that the message gets a bit lost. So that, for example, would be a red flag for me personally. Or if you were saying, I'm not really interested in creating any new work, my capacity to create new work isn't very high. Over a year, I'd probably be looking at maybe 12 to 15 pieces of new work every year, for example. Whilst I don't have a specific quota that I say you have to commit to, I do want my artists to be regularly generating new work, because my agency, one of the things about my vision is that we're active, we're alive, it's imaginative, and so it's important, therefore, that an artist is creating new work regularly. So it's different, I think, for every agent.
Yes, I understand, but this is why it's so interesting to know your opinion, to know your side and your vision. Can you please share with us the process, the next steps when you signed up the artist? Oh no, when you selected the artist, what is next? How the work, how you start to work together? Maybe some main highlights, main things, how the work is organized for artists, for creatives who are thinking about joining an art agency. Again, I think that there might be some differences in art agencies, but we would love to learn from you in your experience how it works.
Well, thank you. It's a really good question, and it splits into two parts. It splits into a practical part and into a creative part. So I would have a creative conversations with an artist to find out more about their dreams, about the ideal project that they want to be working on, and the ideal clients. So we would explore therefore themes and ideas in order for them to start working on artwork with a much more kind of considered idea behind it, with my support. So that's one thing that we would do. And we would also take 6 to 8 weeks. It takes 6 to 8 weeks when we first start working with a new artist to share how we code everything, which is quite complex. We have to, once we have all of your artwork in the right format with codes that are going to kind of be efficient for us to be able to search with, I would have to find out all of the licensing history for every single piece of artwork that you have. So, and I would have to, and I do this personally myself still. I personally am the person updating our system with, for example, your lovely blue and yellow pattern behind you. I'm personally updating our system with that's been licensed for this specific product, for this specific client. And if you've licensed it 10 times, I'm updating the system 10 times for that one piece of artwork. And I'm doing that myself, even though I have a team of people kind of supporting me. The reason I'm doing that is because the weight of responsibility is so high around licensing a piece of artwork for something when it isn't actually available for that product. That's a really terrifying prospect. So I'd much rather have responsibility for that. But you can imagine that takes a lot of time to find out all of that information as well. So, for example, your strawberry jumper, what's the start date for that license? What's the expiry date for that license? There's all sorts of kind of practical stuff that we have to know about the individual artwork. But I'd also ask you things like, which ones are your best-selling artworks? Which are your 8 most popular pieces of work to get a little bit of understanding of how your work has been responded to thus far.
That's amazing, incredible. And it's so surprising that you're still doing so much work by your own with all this licensing also, and you have a big team. That's really amazing. I also want to ask you about your Golden Thread Art Challenge. It starts soon in January. Can you share more about it and tell us about it?
Thank you. So yes, Shahan's Golden Thread. I've actually been working on the resource, which I can share with you, just the front cover. Shahan's Golden Thread 2025. So it's a weekly art challenge that I started this year, and it's been absolutely amazing to create artwork with artists around the world in response to a weekly prompt that I give. And the idea of Shahan's Golden Thread is that the first piece of work you create in response to the first prompt that I give you, you can obviously create anything that you want to create. And then when you get the second prompt, I'm asking you to look at the first piece of work that you did and choose something that you like about it, or something that you think was successful about it, or something that you're interested in taking further. And choose one thing from the last piece of work to explore again or include again in the second piece of work. And then the same again. So then I would give you a third prompt, and again you would pick up on a thread from that second piece of artwork to take through into the next. So what it's supporting you in doing, it's supporting you in creating a set of work because there's a connection between each one. It's also supporting you in thinking about the things that you're interested in as an artist. Because what I see a lot of artists do, and I've done it myself, is we like to create non-related single piece of artwork. I've got a brilliant idea, I'm going to do this. And you do it. And then I've got another brilliant idea, but it's completely different, and I'm going to do that. And you do it. And that's great. And it's all generating ideas. However, it's really important that you take one idea and you develop it as well. So the idea of Shahan's Golden Thread, it's very open to do what you want, but each time just to pick up on something that you like from the piece before. And if you do that for a whole year, you can see the development that you might get across that time. So it creates a golden thread of your creative thinking. And I split the 52 weeks into 4. So there are 4 different themes. So the first theme for 2025 is starting on the 6th of January, Monday the 6th of January. So every Monday, a new prompt to your inbox. And it's great fun. And splitting it into 4 themes, again, supports artists to, again, think about a collection, a set of artwork, rather than always the completely separate pieces of work that is going to be longer term, less helpful for you in developing one idea further.
I love the idea, and it sounds very interesting and inspiring. And how our listeners can participate in this challenge? What they should do?
So yes, to take part, so you can go to my Instagram bio, and if you go to the links there, the top one I think is Shahan's Golden Thread 2025. And you can also go to yourcreativegold.com/golden thread as well. But either one of those 2 things. And I will be sharing about it on my Instagram nearer to January the 1st. But it's proven so helpful for so many artists and really given them focus and community. And yeah, it's a great thing to do. And if you're already subscribed, you will automatically get the Golden Thread project if you're already on the list to receive them. So I was just looking at a question.
Yeah, there was a question. If you already subscribed to your channel, will we get a prompt automatically to join the Golden Thread project?
I will be sending out another opportunity to receive the Golden Thread prompts within my email list. Yes, but it's a group within my email list, because not everybody wants to receive it. So
I hope many people will participate because it's really inspiring. All the art challenges can ignite some creativity in you, and it's also a nice way to have this inspiring commitment and to share all the works and see what others create. I love art challenges.
yes.
I have more couple of questions. I think we still have time a little bit. So it sounds like you have a lot of work as an art agent, especially doing many things by yourself. Also, it looks like that you're really very responsible for what you're doing and for all your illustrators. What helps you to manage all these things? This kind of work-life balance. What are your secrets?
I love that you've asked me that question. So this is something that I've been really focusing on this year, because yes, I think I did get to a point where I was just working all of the time, and as things have grown, it's not sustainable for me to not build in some self-care. So I have a new routine in the mornings. Instead of going straight onto my phone to do my social media, I don't look at my phone for the first 90 minutes of the day. So I wake up, I try to let myself wake up naturally. And the first thing I do is to read my book. So I'll read, and then I'll go for a walk. So I'll make sure I drink a litre of water as well. And I'll go out into the world, into the park near to my house. And I do a short walk around the park every day. And it's just been the most amazing experience. It just brings me so much calm and mindfulness. And I have that calm relationship with the world and with myself, and really can check in with where I am before I then go into my emails and start looking at my phone and start getting really busy. So yeah, and lots and exercise.
Yeah, that sounds smart.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you mentioned at the beginning that you, even before you became an art agent, you had a very strong relationship with your clients. So it sounds like you're really good in collaborating with people to build long-term relationships. What are your main tips for others who would love to evolve, to develop such a relationship in collaborations and working projects with people?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think for me, it's about being authentic and being yourself, and really asking yourself the questions about, well, what are you most interested in? And once you know that, find the people who are going to kind of connect with that. And I think also that I don't feel confident about everything, but I'll do it anyway. So even if you're feeling not very confident about something, don't let that completely stop you. So try to keep moving, try to keep active, even if you're still feeling a little bit scared about something. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you answered my very last questions. Maybe the answer would be the same, but looking back, what would you tell your younger self when you first started this journey?
I think I probably would have said it's amazing how far you will go by being authentic and embracing what you love and working hard. And it's amazing how much that will work for you commercially as well as creatively. So don't underestimate your own point of view. and the importance of it. So that's, I think, really important. So yeah, be open and honest, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much for being so honest and so open with us today. It was very inspiring, and I see how much you love your work and how open-hearted you are even today with us. Thank you so much. It was very helpful and very lovely to spend this time with you.
Absolutely, Polina, and I'd love to find out more about your work and your journey another time. I think I read that you studied in St. Petersburg, is that right?
Yes, that's right. I was born and raised in St. Petersburg.
Oh, beautiful. Wow, fantastic. Well, so lovely to connect, and thank you for your patience with the initial technical hitches.
Don't worry. Thank you for finding time and for sharing with us all your tips. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.